Welcome to Dex Online Science Tutorial, and this is the voice of Pedagogue Dex. Please, if you are watching this on Facebook, do well to follow us and also give this video a like. And if you are following us on YouTube, please do subscribe to our YouTube channel and also like this video. So today we are going to be looking at microorganism in action. This class is mainly meant for those that are writing JAM, that's JAM students, and also post-UTME students. It will also be useful for NECO and WIEC students. Alright, so today we are going to be looking at microorganisms in action. Alright, so there are a few things that needs to be noted concerning microorganisms, and everything will be discussed in this class. The continuation of this class will be dropped later in another video. So let's go in. So first of all, we are going to be looking at the growth of microorganisms. Now, microbial growth refers to the increase in population size, not the cell size. So whenever we're talking about growth of organisms, generally, we're not talking about the size of the cell. We're talking about the population growth. Okay, so this actually has to do with the population size, not the cell size. Okay, and there is something called generation time. Generation time is the time it takes for a population to double in size. All right, so you can see two examples given: that of Escherichia coli, also called the E. coli. This one, the generation time is approximately 30 minutes. That means if you leave E. coli in a favorable environment, every 30 minutes the size will double. And then that of Mycobacterium tuberculosis is around 12 hours. So you can see that the generation time actually varies for different organisms. And also note that environmental factors such as availability of food, water, and some other necessary stuffs in the surrounding is also important in determining the generation time of every microorganism. So we're also going to look at the growth patterns of organisms. Very important, because JAM often asks questions from this area. So growth patterns in microorganisms, and we're going to be using the E. coli as a standard in this class. Okay, so let's quickly scroll downward. Now, this is a graph actually showing us the growth of microorganisms, mainly the E. coli. Okay, so you can see that when these microorganisms are growing in a favorable environment, we usually observe four major phases. The first phase is called the lag phase. This is the initial slow phase as the organism tries to adapt to its environment. So in this phase, there is no obvious increase in size, and it only lasts for just about 1 to 2 hours. And after that, the exponential phase will begin. The exponential phase is the phase of maximum growth, where the population doubles rapidly. As the population size keeps on increasing very, very fast. And then we have the stationary phase. The stationary phase is a relatively zero growth phase. This is as a result of limiting factors like nutrient depletion or overcrowding. As the organisms keep increasing in size, we get to a point where they will attain a level where the overcrowding will, overshadow the availability of substance in the surrounding. So in situations like this, you now experience the stationary phase, where there will be no net increase in the population size. And after that, you have the death phase, also called the declining phase, where the population begins to decline and die out as a result of, lack of nutrients to support the large population. All right. So having known this about the microorganism, let's now move over to beneficial effect of microorganisms. Because microorganisms have their beneficial effects, they also have their harmful effects. Okay, so let's look at the beneficial effects of microorganisms. Firstly, it is good to know that microorganisms have good effects in different areas of life. First of all, in nature, microorganisms contribute to soil fertility and also nutrient recycling in the environment. So I believe you must have heard of the microorganism called Nitrosomonas and Nitrobacter. If you haven't heard of them, no problem. These are two organisms that help in recycling nitrogenous compound in the ecosystem. Okay, and you can also have others like iron bacteria and so many others. All these all help to improve soil fertility and also help to recycle nutrients in the ecosystem. And let's move over to the next slide. In sewage disposal, you can have the use of aerobic bacteria, where aerobic bacteria is used to break down sewage. Actually, in Nigeria, we know that most of the time, the way our sewage is disposed in a disordered manner. But in a well-organized society, the sewage first must go through some industrial process before it is disposed into water bodies. So once this sewage have been collected by those officials in charge, they need to carry out some reactions using aerobic bacteria. So these aerobic bacteria are able to break down the sewage and segment the harmful parts from the harmless parts. Okay, after breaking it down, you have a liquid part. That liquid part is safely discharged because the harmful stuffs inside has been, removed by these microorganisms. So the liquid parts can be disposed into water bodies without causing any harm. And while the sludge that is left can be used in the production of fertilizers. So in food industry also, microorganism is useful. It is used for fermentation. Fermentation is a very important process in production of alcohol, or your whiskey, your gin, every other alcoholic drink out there. They all use fermentation, and also production of single cell protein, food additives, preservatives, flavor, and texture. So all these are all important use of microorganisms in food industry, and also in chemical and pharmaceutical industries. These microorganisms, different microorganisms, can be used in producing important substances, important compounds needed for medication, and also for manufacturing of enzymes. Okay, so all these are just some of the few um, good uses of microorganisms, or importance of microorganisms generally to humans. Also, we are going to look at the harmful effect of microorganisms, having known the useful effect. Okay, so how can microorganisms actually harm us? They can harm us in two major ways. The first way is by, causing diseases. All right, these microorganisms that cause disease, we call them pathogens. All right, they can cause diseases in individuals, and some of them are also good in spreading their disease from one individual to another, while others may need some animal vectors. Okay, so these disease causing microorganisms that are transmitted through the air, they are called airborne pathogens. The one transmitted through contaminated water, we call them waterborne pathogens. And the one transmitted through contaminated food, they are called foodborne pathogens. And then the ones you can get from direct contact, the disease that they carry, we call them contagious disease. And also, microorganisms can harm us by causing what is called food spoilage. Okay, so if you keep your food exposed, microorganisms can come into it and um, work havoc in your food and cause the formation of harmful substance in your food, and generally just spoil the texture and everything about your food, and it will be dangerous to consume such kind of food. So these are two major ways that microorganisms harm us. Okay, but our focus is going to be on the disease causing microorganisms. All right, now there are lots of disease causing microorganisms, but we are going to be looking at some major ones, those major ones that are actually useful for exam preparation for JAM and post UTME and every other necessary exams out there. Okay, so I have listed some of the common diseases, their causative agents, that means the organism that cause them, and how they are transmitted from one person to another. I call them the mode of transmission. Now let's get into it. Number one on the list, we have cholera. Cholera is actually a disease that one can contaminate from, either contaminated food or contaminated water. And once a person has cholera, the person will begin to, release watery stool. Okay, so this is actually a very common disease here in Africa, and the causative agent behind it is Vibrio cholerae, and you can get this microorganism through consumption of contaminated water and contaminated food, and it is also spread or transmitted by housefly. Okay, number two on the list, we have tuberculosis. Now, tuberculosis is actually caused by an agent called Mycobacterium tuberculosis. Now, if you check, I actually highlighted these words in yellow so that you know that they are very important and you need to take note of them. Okay, so tuberculosis is caused by Mycobacterium tuberculosis. It used to be a deadly disease, but now it has treatment and you can go to hospitals when you have them. Okay, so the mode of transmission is actually through the air. Once a person has tuberculosis, the person is always coughing and sneezing, and those particles can go through the air. And another person that does not have it will inhale those particles containing these microorganisms, and then the person will also contaminate this tuberculosis caused by Mycobacterium tuberculosis. And third on the list, we have gonorrhea. Gonorrhea, the causative agent is called Neisseria gonorrhea. Okay, the mode of transmission is actually through sexual intercourse. The same goes with syphilis. Syphilis is transmitted through sexual intercourse, and the causative agent is Treponema pallidum. All right, now fifth on the list, we have what is called rabies. Rabies can also be called hydrophobia. The word hydrophobia means the fear of water. So if anybody has rabies, the person is automatically afraid of water. Okay, so the mode of transmission for rabies is actually, direct contact with direct contact with broken skin of an infected person. Or also, if dogs, because normally dogs have this organism called rabies virus. Okay, so if a dog bites a person, the rabies virus can move into the person, and then the person will have this hydrophobia called rabies. Okay, and also wolves to cats, bats, all these are animals that can actually transmit this dangerous microorganism. And also, sixth on the list, we have poliomyelitis, also called infantile paralysis. The causative agent is actually piconavirus, which is also an RNA virus, just like the rabies. Okay, so the mode of transmission is actually through contaminated water and contaminated food. All right, through contaminated water and contaminated food, and droplets infection through coughing and sneezing of infected individuals or carriers. Okay, so this is actually the major mode of transmission for this particular disease. And seventh on the list, we have the well-known malaria. Malaria is actually caused by a microorganism called Plasmodium. There are different species of Plasmodium, but the major one that causes malaria that we all know is Plasmodium falciparum. There is also another species of Plasmodium called Plasmodium malaria. That one can also cause malaria, as you can hear from its names. But the major culprit behind malaria most of the time is Plasmodium falciparum. Okay, so the mode of transmission is actually through bites of infected female Anopheles mosquito. Okay, most people believe that mosquito actually cause malaria, but actually, as mosquito does not cause malaria, it only carries the agent that causes malaria. And then also on the list, the eighth place, we have the one called the trypanosomiasis, also called sleeping sickness. Trypanosomiasis is caused by a microorganism called Treponema gambiens. Now, Treponema gambiens and Plasmodium falciparum, generally all the species of Plasmodium, the two of them, they belong to the kingdom called Protista, and they are protozoans. Okay, so it is good you also know them. All right, now they are mainly found in Africa, and the mode of transmission is through the bite of an infected fly. All right, and 9, you have body ringworm. This one is very common for many persons, especially those that hardly take their bath. Okay, so it is actually called tinea versicolor for those that don't know the name before, but casually we all know it as eczema, and some tribe they call it ugwa, but it's actually well known as eczema. Now, if you know eczema, that's yellow patches you see on some person's skin, maybe on their face, around their nose, and different parts of the body. That is called eczema. The English name is actually tinea versicolor, or you can call it body ringworm. Okay, it is caused by a microorganism called dermatophytes. Dermatophytes are filamentous fungi that actually affect the skin. Not that they cause serious problem anyways, but they just kind of disrupt the texture of your skin and make it look ugly. Alright, and the mode of transmission is through direct contact with a person that has eczema. Alright, and it can affect a person's skin, a person's hair, and the person's nails if they have contacts with these parts of the body. And you may not easily spot them on your nails because the color will kind of blend with your nails, but you can easily spot them on your skin. Okay, and number 10 on the list, we have smallpox. Smallpox is caused by a virus called pox virus, and the mode of transmission is airborne. So pox virus is actually airborne disease, and if you inhale it, you get it. Okay, and 11th on the list, we have measles. Measles is used to be a deadly disease anyways, but now due to vaccine and different advances in medicine, we can now properly handle measles. In fact, if you take your postnatal and antenatal stuff serious as a pregnant woman and nursing mother, even if your children have measles in the future, they won't even need a medication for the measles to go away. Okay, so the causative agent for measles is paramyxovirus. Okay, and the mode of transmission is also airborne. And 12th on the list, we have typhoid. Typhoid is caused by a microorganism, which is actually a bacteria called Salmonella typhi. And the mode of transmission is through consumption of contaminated food and contaminated water, just like cholera. Okay, and also 13th on the list, to be the last on my list, is amoebic dysentery. Amoebic dysentery is caused by a microorganism called Entamoeba histolytica. It's actually a species of amoeba which belongs to the kingdom Protista. And the mode of transmission is through consumption of contaminated food or contaminated water. These things are very important, and every student should know them. Okay, so lastly in this class, we're going to be looking at the life cycle of Plasmodium, which is the malaria parasite. Okay, and every stage of this life cycle should be noted by every student. All right, so generally the Plasmodium has two major hosts, the primary host and the secondary host. So the primary host is actually a human, and the secondary host is the female Anopheles mosquito. All right, so let's look at the life cycle stages one after the other. Now let's zoom in into this particular diagram and let's see what is in it. But before we do that, let's quickly just look at the written part of it. All right, so let's look at the human stage, okay, because there has to be a human stage and a mosquito stage. The human stage often comes first. This is the asexual cycle. There is a part of the life cycle of Plasmodium that is asexual, and there's another part that is sexual. So the asexual part actually takes place in humans, and the sexual part takes place in mosquito. Please take note of this, very important. Now, once a mosquito bites a person and then release Plasmodium into the person's system, the stage of Plasmodium that is released is called the sporozoite stage. So this stage is introduced into the human body through infected mosquito bites. So what will happen to these sporozoites? Normally, they will be released into the blood. So these sporozoites will migrate to the liver. That's the first mission. When they get to the liver, they begin to multiply and develop into another stage called the trophozoites. Now, the trophozoites, when they have been formed, they will come out from the liver and migrate into the red blood cells. And when they enter the red blood cells, they will begin to divide asexually. Remember that the asexual part takes place in humans, so this is where it occurs. So they begin to divide asexually to form another stage called the merozoite. Okay, so from sporozoite to trophozoite to merozoite. Okay, so this merozoite stage now infects more cells. They continue to do their job to keep infecting more cells, and the more they infect more cells, the more the persons begin to feel weak and weak and weak and down with malaria. Okay, so once the sporozoite comes into the blood, the person will not know that he has gotten malaria. If the sporozoite has gotten to the liver and begins to form trophozoites, the person will still not know that malaria has come. But once the trophozoite now escapes from the liver and enters the red blood cells and begins to divide inside the red blood cells to form the merozoite, it is at this point the person will begin to feel sick and down with malaria. Okay, so these merozoites, some of them will transform, not all of them. Some will keep destroying red blood cells as they are going everywhere, while others will transform into gametocytes. Alright, now these gametocytes, if another mosquito now comes in and bites this person that has a gametocyte, the gametocyte will now enter into the mosquito, and then the sexual cycle will now continue inside the mosquito. How will it continue? The gametocyte ingested by the mosquito during feeding will begin to reproduce sexually, okay, in the stomach of the mosquito. Remember that it is a gametocyte, so it can produce gametes. So the gametes will fuse and form another set of sporozoites. So these sporozoites will now migrate to the salivary gland of the mosquito. Okay, so once that mosquito now go and bite another person that does not have malaria at all, the sporozoite will quickly pass through and enter into the person's body, and the life cycle will start all over again. So this is actually everything that was clearly explained in this diagram. So first of all, you can actually see the the mosquito itself. You can see the mosquito here. This is where the mosquito bites the person, and then it releases some stuff into the bloodstream. Those stuff are called the sporozoites. So you can see the sporozoites will find their way to the liver. Okay, look at them here in the liver. They continue to develop to this stage, and then to this stage, and then these guys will escape from the liver to form the trophozoites. Okay, you can see the trophozoites, and then the trophozoites will proceed and proceed and proceed, and then it will get to a point. Some of them will deviate to continue to destroy red blood cells. Meanwhile, others will come this way to form gametocytes. All right, so these gametocytes will then be taken by another mosquito, and this mosquito will now go and, after the mosquito leaves, the gametocytes will now form gametes and, form another set of sporozoites that will be injected into another healthy person, and the person will still get malaria. So this is how the malaria causative agent is actually spread from persons to person. So we have come to the end of the class. All right, so if you have any question, please do well to drop it down in the comment section, and then I will attend to it. Please don't forget to like this video. If you are watching on YouTube, subscribe. If you are watching on Facebook, do well to give us a follow. Anywhere you are watching this from, do well to follow us, and God bless you. See you in the next video. Don't forget to always come back for more videos. God bless you. Bye bye.